Hello all, this is Ryan with Dark Winter Moon in Boston, and today I wanted to talk to you about the element of fire and how you can work with it magically, its characteristics, and some of my experiences with it in the craft. So, especially lately, fire has been really coming up for me. I've had a lot of tarot readings where I've seen the suit of wands, and in tarot, wands corresponds to fire. So, fire is about passion, will, the drive to get things done. It's the motivating force in the elements of witchcraft, and it helps propel you forward and make decisions. So, also for me, I am an Aquarius sun sign with an Aries Moon and a Libra Rising. So, fire for me is my element, the second element with which I have the most affinity, the first being air. So, I am very much described as an Aries Moon, which is my internal sort of fiery, passionate nature, but filtered through the lens of the Aquarian focus and intellect with the balance of Libra. So overall, I tend to be fairly balanced, but when you get me angry or you ignite my passions, they erupt, and I'm moving forward very quickly. So, with that said, fire for me has held a long fascination in my life. But it wasn't until I read, probably at the age of 12, this series of books called Circle of Magic. And they start out with this young wizard who starts learning about magic, and he, as part of his training, has to summon a fire elemental. And I remember the descriptions of the magical summoning circle that he had to create, and all the magical and arcane sigils that he created in order to provide a magical container for this elemental. And I remember thinking how amazing and cool that sounded and how I wanted to learn more. So these stories in Circle of Magic gave me the first inkling that there was more than just a simple materialistic experience of fire, that there was a deeper spiritual meaning to it. And intuitively, I wanted to seek that out. And so, years later, when I discovered witchcraft, I started to realize that there was a spirituality that embodied that there was more to fire and all the elements and even nature itself than just it being this material expression of it being inanimate matter. So, one of my first incredible experiences in the craft with fire was pretty early on in my journey in the craft. I was working with my first coven at that time, and we had just finished one of our rituals, and we were all just sitting around the fire, kind of decompressing, and I found myself staring into the flames, and I was just mesmerized and hypnotized by them. And I was just really, really focusing deeply on the fire. And a few minutes later, I heard someone calling my name, and it took a minute for me to realize that they were even talking to me, and it shook me out of it. And the voice said, "Ryan, stop." And it was one of my coven mates. And I realized at that moment that I had been focusing so intently on the fire that I had been pouring energy into it. And it had been flaring up and raging and making a whole bunch of noise. And I was like, wow, that was really cool. I never knew that by focusing on fire that it would start to behave that way. And so at that moment, I felt this really deep and pretty amazing, wondrous connection with fire. And that if I learned that if a witch could focus on it, if a practitioner could focus on fire, they could learn to have a relationship with it and learn to partner with it to accomplish great things. So later on in my witchcraft journey, when I became a little more advanced, I felt the call and pull of the fire element to come and study with it. So I set up an altar for fire, and on that altar I put this beautiful red brocade, beautifully designed ornate tablecloth, or altar cloth in this instance, and put a red candle on it that smelled like something I would associate with heat and fire. I think it was like a warm berry scent. And I put matches on there and some copper wire and garnet and all of these other items that to me not only felt like they connected me with fire, but also I had learned represented fire from my studies in witchcraft. And so I deeply wanted to connect with fire and understand its nature. So one day I was meditating in front of the altar, and I said to fire, "Fire, please help me understand you. Help me understand what you're about. Help me understand what you are at your most fundamental level." And so later on that evening, I was cooking dinner and heating something up in the oven, and I opened the oven door to pull out the item, and I reached in and I grabbed the oven rack with my bare hand without even thinking about it, and burned the hell out of myself. And all of a sudden I just lifted up my hand and I looked at it and I went, "Oh my God, that's it! Fire burns!" That was the lesson. Fire burns. That's what it does. On its most fundamental level, it burns. And therein lies the lesson that fire is something that destroys and something that creates. It's the thing that can burn you if you don't mind it, and it's also the thing that can burn away what is no longer valuable, what is no longer useful, what is dead and needs to be purged. It is a force that makes way for new growth. It propels you forward. It creates energy and power to get things done. It motivates. It motivated me in that moment to yank my hand back because I just burned the hell out of myself. So, yeah. So I continued this journey with fire. And again, later on, I was meditating in front of the fire altar. And during that meditation and my communion with fire, I felt that it was time to light another candle. I could never have too much fire as far as fire is concerned. So I reached onto the altar and I picked up the book of matches that I had there, or rather the box of matches, and I struck the match to light the candle, and it, before it even lit, it snapped. And I literally did this like 5 times, and at this point I was getting pretty frustrated. So I said, "Would you just light?" And I struck the match, and the flame literally leapt off the end of the match, hit me in the stomach, and rolled all the way up my chest before it went out. And of course, there was a moment of panic where I was like, "What's happening? I've never seen fire do that. Is it going to catch me on fire? Is it going to stop? What's going to happen?" And so therein, I learned the second lesson that fire wanted to teach me, and that was that fire is unpredictable, and it must be approached with respect. Yes, it can be partnered with and in some ways harnessed to get things done, but if you are not ever vigilant with fire, then it can get out of control and destroy you. And thank the gods in this instance that fire was kind enough to be teaching me a lesson and didn't take it to the extreme of actually catching something on fire, because there was no damage done. So the final thing I wanted to talk about is how do we take this elemental fire, this power, and through magic and witchcraft, internalize it so that we can utilize it in our own personal growth and to motivate ourselves and to give us passion and inspiration to get things done. And the way I like to describe that feeling, first of all, that I'm talking about, is there have been times in my life where it felt like that from the center of my chest, from my heart chakra, that fire had ignited there, and that it was just flowing through me and out of me. And I just knew in that moment that despite logic or emotion or fear, that I was going to move forward into the unknown with faith and hope and certainty and open-mindedness. And it's a beautiful place to be. And so all of the things I just described, the communing with fire, bringing it forward, can allow you to embody this. And one of the many things that I love about witchcraft is it provides a pathway where you can explore fire, where you can start to learn how to understand it and internalize it, and learn how to evoke those feelings within yourself. Whether it's through the tarot and the creation of ritual and the creation of incense or many other things, use of stones. There's so many ways that you can embody and catalyze fire in your life. So now I would like to share with you one of the ways that you can work with fire and evoke it in your life. And that is by the creation of your very own incense dedicated to fire. So now I'm going to show you how to make the incense that we were talking about earlier. So what you're going to need is a tablespoon, a mortar and pestle, which you can usually get at any sort of witchcraft shop or cooking store, a microplane, which is basically a really fine grater, a vegetable peeler, kitchen knife, a cheese grater, a long tine fork, a couple of bowls, and a spice container. So the spice container is for your final incense, and one reason I love these is they seal, so it keeps your incense fresher. And they also usually have the holes in the top, so it's easy to shake out your incense onto your charcoal. So just make sure before you use these that they're really clean so that the scent of whatever spice was in them before isn't in there and changes the scent profile of your incense. Also, your actual ingredients, what you're going to need is some ground cinnamon, some frankincense, an orange to zest with the microplane, and then some cinnamon essential oil, frankincense essential oil, orange essential oil, and lemon essential oil, and then some raw ginger. So I chose all of these ingredients for this incense mainly because they all have fire properties. So they're going to lend to that fire energy that you're wanting to represent and evoke with this incense. The first two ingredients are going to be your base ingredients. So these are going to give your incense the bulk, and that's the ground cinnamon and the frankincense. Now, out of all the ingredients, the frankincense may be the one that's hardest to find, but you can order it on Amazon, and there are also lots of other places online that you can order it. And you can order it in a bulk form. So it's a solid resin. So the first thing you're going to want to do is take your ground cinnamon and take out a couple of tablespoons of that and put it in your bowl. And the measurements don't have to be perfect. Just close. The next thing you're going to want to do, and for our purposes, I've already ground this up, but you're going to want to take about this much, 2 palmfuls of your frankincense and stick it in your mortar and pestle and just grind it up as fine as you can. Now, it's pretty easy to grind, so you shouldn't have too much trouble with that. And then once that's done, you're going to want to do, like I said, 2 tablespoons of that and throw it in your bowl with your cinnamon. The next thing you're going to want to do is zest your orange. So do that, pretty simple. Just give this a few passes. You're going for about a teaspoon of this, a teaspoon and a half. And when it comes off, it's going to be pretty wet. So you're going to want to just, see, like that. You're going to want to just take your fork, or your finger even. I find the fork just works easier. Doesn't stick to the fork as much as your finger. Just put that in there. Now you're going to want to peel your ginger. So take about an inch long piece of it and just peel it with your vegetable peeler. I already have a piece that I've done that with. Once you get it peeled, you're going to want to take the fine edge of your cheese grater and just run that down there. And just do the whole thing. You probably won't use all of it, but what you're left with is something that's pretty finely ground. And then you're going to want to chop that up as finely as possible with your kitchen knife. And just throw a couple of pinches in your incense bowl. All right. Then after that, it's pretty simple. You want to add 1 drop each of your essential oils. So your cinnamon and your frankincense and your orange and then your lemon. If you get more than 1 drop in there, not a big deal. Perfect. And then this is another great use for the fork. Because you've got some wet ingredients in here, the fork is really great at breaking them up and giving you a much more even product for your incense. That way you get all ingredients burning each time you do it. And it's that simple. End up with your finished product looking like this. So that's about it. So just remember, all of these ingredients are things that you can generally find around your home or easily order. And all of the tools are something that's probably already in your kitchen. So enjoy the lovely scent of this incense and enjoy the power and passion that it evokes in you for the element of fire. Thank you so much. So mote it be.